plan that goes with your flow. Get unlimited local talk, text, and data at the most affordable rate with Unlimited Flow Postpaid, only at Docomo Pacific.
Try Wendy's deliciously indulgent mushroom bacon cheeseburger made with juicy beef, crispy applewood smoked bacon, savory roasted mushrooms, Munster cheese, and a creamy garlic spread, all in a soft toasted bun. Make it a combo and try it in a double or triple. Wendy's, good done right. Beat the heat and indulge in fruity cold smoothies at Cold Stone Creamery today. And if you're looking for a healthier alternative, they've got an acai bowl packed with fruits for a refreshing holiday from the hot sun. And whatever is stressing you out, take the family, treat your friends, or hog it all to yourself. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Good morning, my friends. It is 10:33 a.m. on Tuesday, January 21, 2025. I'm Troy Torres. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's been a while since I've done a morning show, and today starts the daily morning shows where it might get a little boring. I don't know if you're a nerd and into all this legislative stuff, but you should be wanting to understand where your legislators are coming from and what they're doing. So every morning I want to review as bills are introduced in the 38th Guam legislature and the 24th Commonwealth legislature, letting you know exactly what they've introduced and who's introduced these bills so that we all have a greater understanding of what senators are doing and maybe even a glimpse into who might be influencing them. And so today we start with the Guam legislature because the 24th Commonwealth legislature's website is not yet populated with any legislation that has been introduced, if any legislation has been introduced in the House or the Senate there. But as soon as that starts, we'll pick up with the morning look into each of these legislatures. But in the Guam legislature, there already have been 27 bills that have been introduced since their inauguration 2 Mondays ago, and we can go through that. This is just a very simple thing. Let me show you their website. They have a new website, by the way. So before, you would go to guamlegislature.org or guamlegislature.com, where the legislature, one of the reasons that the legislature did not have the ability to accept bills until 1 week later, January 13, well, among the reasons are there was a little silliness and petty politics from the outgoing Democratic leadership of the legislature and how they took their sweet time to move out and also disconnected internet and all kinds of weird stuff that the Democrats did on their way out of the legislature. They're completely unprofessional, completely petty. So that sort of stalled things for the Republicans, but they also had to migrate the website to a .gov. And so the new website is guamlegislature.gov. It's nicer, it's much more interactive and better and easier to use. So here's the bills section of that. Let me just go to, here we go. So here is, let's go to the homepage here so you see Guam Legislature. So here's their new website, guamlegislature.gov. And you can toggle here to go find, it's similar to the previous one. Now, under finances, I was looking at this morning. They don't have finances posted for the current legislature, and that probably has to do with the time it takes for paperwork to get around. But under legislation, they do have the bills posted. And bill number 1 is by Telo Taidagui. Doesn't seem to be anything controversial. Seems to be a good thing. She wants to ensure that the Guam Cancer Care Trust Fund, the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, receives from the Healthy Futures Fund, which is the fund of revenue from which cigarette and alcohol taxes and I think other types of taxes are deposited into. This is the fund that provides a small subsidy to Guam Memorial Hospital and much larger funding for anti-alcohol, anti-drug, and anti-tobacco usage. What Senator Taidigui wants to do is dedicate at least 15% of the remainder of the Healthy Futures Fund outside of the GMH subsidy, or $4 million, whichever is the higher amount of the taxes collected for the Healthy Futures Fund to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund. This sort of resolves an issue, a controversial issue from last legislature, when the last legislature failed to provide adequate funding, as the Guam Cancer Trust Fund has submitted, so that that trust fund can operate. Doesn't seem like a bad thing. Of course, the devil is always in the details, right? Here's the second bill. It's by Joe San Augustine, and it essentially prohibits the government of Guam from passing on the credit card fees. So when you have a transaction with the government and you use your debit or credit card, they charge you a fee. I'm not sure if your debit card's charged a fee, but your credit card at least is charged a fee. And so, if you're paying like a $50 fine or a $25 permit, they tack on the additional credit card fee, and they pass that charge on to the customer. Senator Joe San Augustine wants to get rid of that. And in this bill, that's essentially what he says. He does not provide where in the budget this money will come from, because it will cost the government money. The government still has to pay the bank the credit card fee. This bill doesn't provide that. So we'll see how that goes. Bill number 3. Now, this is the first time I'm looking at some of this, by the way, so bear with me. This is about establishing an electronic nicotine delivery system product tax and licensing, which shall be cited as the ENDS excise tax of 2025, and establish a revolving fund and a Guam Memorial Hospital Authority revolving fund. So, the legislature has placed taxes on cigarettes. That's what the legislative findings and intent are saying. But there is currently no standardized tax regulation for electronic nicotine delivery systems, or also called ENDS. I wonder if this is the same thing as vapes, right? I mean, that sounds like a vape, right? An electronic nicotine delivery system. That's what a vape is, yeah. And so he wants to tax it. Let's see. He creates an entire chapter. This is his bill that he proposes. Makes definitions. ENDS shall mean a non-combustible product that may contain nicotine and that uses a heating element, power source, electronic circuit, or other electronic, chemical, or mechanical means to produce vapor from a solution or other substance. Yeah, it's a vape. E-liquid is, that's the thing, in the vape, etc., etc. So the first thing it does says, if this is passed into law, it will create a licensing regulation. So if you're going to sell vapes, you have to have a special license to sell vape. I honestly thought that that was already the case, but okay. The license for a retailer of vapes would be $500 every year, and for a wholesaler would be $2,000. Let's see. I thought I saw something about taxes. Blah, blah, blah. This is a comprehensive legislation. You have to be at least 21 years of age in order to be a retailer, or to have a retailer or wholesaler license. Penalties for selling Vapes without a license. So this has language about not selling vapes to anyone under the age of 21. I thought that was already a law. Or can you buy a vape here on Guam if you're 18, 19, or 20? I thought that so when I go into the vape store, I always like I see those signs, and I think those signs say that you have to be 21 years of age or older. Maybe these vape stores just made that their policy because it coincides with the cigarette purchase policy of 21 years of age or older. We should probably ask about that. Actually, no, I don't really care. I'm looking for the tax portion. Gosh, this is such a long bill. I don't see anything here about it. Oh, there, taxes. Oh, golly gee. So, the San Augustine legislation wants to levy a 20% tax on vapes. So, if your vape regularly costs $20, I would assume the retailer will pass on that tax levy and you'll be paying $24. Or if you want to make math a little more simple, if your vape costs $10, which I don't think any vape does, you will end up paying $12. It must be a visible line item on the receipt. The taxes will be paid every month. And then it allocates where these tax revenues would go. All right. So that's Joe San Augustine's bill about taxes. Joe San Augustine also introduced bill number, or did I miss bill number? What did I miss? Oh, yeah. No, I didn't miss anything. Bill number 4 is also by Joe San Augustine. Oh, increasing the minimum wage. And I believe this is the bill that attaches minimum wage increases to the consumer price index. Yes, it is. God bless you, Joe San Augustine. That is self-explanatory. I want to see who's opposed to that. Joe San Augustine again. This is... Oh, son of a gun. I don't know how to... There we go. Veterans license plates. There's no further explanation on that. Joe San Augustine again on bill number 6. This is a transfer of a lot. So a lot of times the legislature, like you'll see so many bills in the every single legislature dealing with properties and transfers of properties, etc. This is one of those transfer bills. I'm sure it's important to whoever's involved, not important to me. Bill number 7. Oh, we can't access bill number 7. This is relative to requiring Chamorro Land Trust to solicit competitive bids for the mass grading and mineral extraction of a portion of Lot 5412 Manilao. This sounds like, now I'm not entirely sure, but this sounds like the racetrack lot. Bill number 8 by Joe San Augustine, relative to the extension of government of Guam leases from 5 to 30 years. That sounds like such a sensible piece of legislation. I'd like to see. I can't access it. I don't know what's going on here, but devil's always in the details, right? But just from the title alone, that sounds like something wonderful. Senator Will Parkinson to the rescue. Bill number 9. This is the GPA credit. Oh boy, can we use this GPA credit? I just don't know how fiscally sound this might be. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love me a $100 discount per month on my power bill. I could use one right now. But this is an appropriation of $15.8 million to make that happen for a 3-month period. I just don't know that this legislature, and especially it's a new legislature with its own priorities, including cutting taxes, can afford to do something like this. We'll see. But, this is self-explanatory. I'm not sure if I support this. As just a private citizen, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I want my Ajuda, what is it, Programan Kandit, but I don't know. This is Sean Gumatautal's bill. Bill number 10. This is life insurance benefits for public safety and law enforcement officers who are killed in the line of duty. There's not much explanation needed here. Another Sean Gumatautal bill. I can't access it. It's not letting me click it. Relative to delivering financial relief to Guam families and businesses in the face of higher costs of living by restoring the BPT to 4%. All right, so this is the Republicans, and Sean Gumatautal takes the lead here. This is the Republicans making good on a promise. It's kind of ironic because the Republicans were the ones who increased taxes. So at the end of the Calvo administration, in light of the Trump tax cuts to corporate and individual taxes that eroded GovGuam's revenues below a good threshold. I'm going to vape because I was talking about vapes and I want to vape. So in order to make up for that lost revenue, because we're a mirror image, right? Then Governor Calvo, with the support of the minority Republican senators, with the support of some of the Democrat majority senators, passed the BPT increase of 25%. It went from 4 basis points to 5 basis points, a 5% BPT. That's 5% tax on the gross revenues of every for-profit organization on the island. It had a big impact, as in our prices all went up. It had a big impact, according to some businesses, in their ability to keep employees on payroll, keep their hours the same, future hiring, capital investments into supplies, things like that, right? And into inventory. All of that was affected. The economy was booming at the time. This was prior to the pandemic. It was supposed to sunset. And then when Governor Lulian Guerrero came in, realizing the tax revenue had bolstered GovGuam finances, she was able to retire the deficit because of that 5% BPT. This was prior to the pandemic. It was ever since Lulian Guerrero's first term, the finances of the government of Guam have been wonderful, essentially, as in the financial management of the government of Guam. I'm not talking about GovGuam's obligation to pay for services and to meet the mandates of each of the agencies. That's a whole different story. But in terms of the management of the cash and the revenues and the expenditures and all that, GovGuam, according to the financial independent audits, has been doing a wonderful job. And so the governor ended up saying that she never wants to see the BPT rolled back to 4%. Then came the pandemic. It seems that we've been living in some sort of a recession ever since, at least for many people who live on the ground, right? And there's been a call to roll back the BPT back to 4%. It's been a call from the Republicans, definitely. Well, Governor Lulian Guerrero did something else, though. She divided the business community into two. There was a threshold. I can't remember what it is. Businesses that make more than a certain amount of gross revenue in a certain year will continue to pay the 5%. Businesses that don't meet that threshold, that fall below that, basically small businesses, by our colloquial definition of a small business, would pay only 3%. So the fact is that for most businesses on the island, Governor Lulian Guerrero cut taxes. It's just for these really big businesses. And the thing is, though, that in terms of the ability for the economy to grow in a sizable and manageable, in a sizable and meaningful way, in order for the majority of the island's employees in the private sector to have some sort of benefit from the companies they work for having the money to pay them more, extend their hours, promote them, buy more inventory, etc. That 5% BPT on the big businesses, which are the biggest employers, which provide the greatest amount of services and products to the people. You're talking about your Paylesses, Home Depots, United Airlines. I mean, all these different big businesses throughout the island, right? So the call from the Republicans is tax relief. And so you have Senator Sean Gumatao making good on the Republicans' pledge of reducing taxes. Now, how that will affect the, let's see, there we go. The budget of the government is a whole different thing. So I'm not able to click on the bill. I don't know what the bill says, but just from the title, restoration of the BPT to 4%. I don't know when that would go into effect. If it goes into effect this fiscal year, according to this bill, I would hope that the bill addresses the downward revenue, that you would have to reduce revenue projections by 20% of BPT, because you're going to go from 5 to 4%. Well, I don't know if it'd be a total 20%, because like I said, the thing was bifurcated, right? It's just the bigger companies that would pay it, but they would be the ones who pay the largest amount of BPT anyway. So we'll see what that says. That's a bill where the devil is in the details for sure. Here is bill number 12 by Therese Terlahi. This is a good bill, but it has funny origins. Here's an example of petty politics at play. And it isn't just Therese Terlahi. Many senators have done this over the decades. This is a bill that basically rehabilitates the Manila Public Health Center and authorizes GCC and all these other people to use this facility. It's going to be good for the expansion of educational opportunities, good for the development and use of an unused property, et cetera, right? It's all good and wonderful. This appears to be a very good bill. The thing is, it could have been passed in the last legislature when Tina Munya Barnes introduced this bill, and then Speaker Terlahi sat on it. More petty politics at play, but whatever. Bill number 13 by Therese Terlahi. Carlos Pangilinan, Mike San Nicolas, and I talked about this extensively in our weekend show, Two Sides of the Light Bulb. And this is mandating a public-private partnership for Guam's public hospital. It comes in steps. First, the Terlahi bill would have GITA issue an RFI for soliciting public interest, then an RFP or creation of an RFP for a public-private partnership, and then the public-private partnership. And a lot of this talks about the inability, the perennial and systemic inability for GMH to be able to get a hold of its finances. If you want a more full discussion on the pros and cons of this bill, just check out the last episode of Two Sides of the Light Bulb. But this surely will be a contentious and controversial topic, but also one that requires a whole lot of research and dedication to facts over fiction. And so we'll see how that goes. Bill number 14 is by Tello Taidagui. Relative to the duties of the public auditor, it's interesting. Let's see. So Tello Taidagui wants to give the public auditor the authority to establish deadlines for submission by every department of the government of all financial or program information under their control as are necessary to carry out the duties of the OPA. Failure to submit such information by the deadline will result in a $250 fine against the agency head. The public auditor shall file a report of those managers, directors, or heads of agencies who fail to pay the fine. I agree with this. Good job, Senator Tello Taidagui. I like that bill quite a bit. Bill number 15 by Tello Taidagui. Relative to commercial leasing of public real property and related facilities. So Telo Taidigui wants to extend the terms on real property leasing by the government from 5 to 10 years. Good. That's a good. Well, 10 years is still too little, but at least this is a start. Provided the terms and conditions of the commercial contract, lease, permit, or license have been satisfied during the initial 5 years, as evidenced in a written approval by the governor or relevant board of directors of the government of Guam. Any contract, lease, tradition. This appears to be a good bill. Good job again, Senator Telo Taidigui. So definitely not enough time, 10 years, but it's certainly better than 5 years. I think maybe Senator Taidigui and Senator San Augustine should get together with their two bills. All right, this is reporting requirements on the use of unclassified employees. This is a bill by Sabina Perez, co-sponsored by Therese Terlahi, Telo Taidigui, and Chris Barnett. So unclassified employees, also known as exempt employees, are the ones who are hired without going through the merit system. They're basically political hires. And they're not always political hires, but they basically are. And they can also, except in certain circumstances, be fired at will, meaning you don't need to give them a reason. You don't even need to, you can just fire them on the spot and they have to leave. The legislature finds in this bill that these employees have become commonplace for a variety of factors. These factors may include federally funded positions where funding is limited by the term of the grant funds, the difficulty in recruiting positions where above-step recruitment may involve a lengthy process such as IT, and speedy hiring. Oh, my dear senators, it's always C. It's always speedy hiring. All the other stuff is the exception, not the rule. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, these senators want to make it. Hold on. The reporting requirements of this article are applicable to all government of Guam branches. This article is not applicable to elected officials, appointed officials, including judges and their immediate subordinates or administrative. Okay, so except for basically except for government employees who are hired by senators, the governor, the mayors, the judges, and the justices, except for the most political of appointments, the other exempt employees or unclassified of the employees of the government of Guam, whenever they're hired, their hiring authority would need to justify their hiring in writing. I believe this is what this says. Yeah, that's what this bill says. Not a bad bill. Not a bad bill at all. I would say extend this to the political appointments, but I know that would be a separation of branches issue, and not something that would fly constitutionally. All right, let's see. The next one by the same set of senators, Bill number 17. How do I close this stupid thing? Oh, there. Relative to procedures for implementation of audit recommendations by agencies. Okay, this is talking about performance audits. And whenever the Office of Public Accountability comes out with a performance audit, well, any audit really, there is a list of recommendations that you'll see at the end. This bill would give the public auditor the authority to file a petition for a writ of mandate to force the implementation of the recommendations and the attendant corrective action plan in the event that the governor, the Committee on Rules of the Legislature, or the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court fail to implement the required corrective action plan, fail to provide a satisfactory explanation as to why such recommendations. All right, there are so many problems with this bill. While that's good and great, while it is we should want these agencies, the governor, the legislature, the Supreme Court, to follow and to implement the corrective action by the public auditor. Number one, I don't know how the legislature is going to be able to define what is a reasonable explanation by one of the heads of those branches why a corrective action wasn't undertaken. The governor can just gaslight. The Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice, can just make up excuses. The head of the legislature can gaslight just like the governor in making excuses for why corrective action wouldn't be implemented. So, on its face, this is already vague. But then there's the idea of, can the legislature force executive action or judicial action? This is another separation of branches issue. So while it sounds like a good thing, I don't know that this was thoroughly thought through and vetted. I'm going to pause here for the comments. Auntie Debbie Kanata says, Gov Guam owns no lands. That's a pretty good point, Auntie Debbie. Lands are kept in the government of Guam under trust, under the People's Trust, through either the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, or the Department of Land Management. And it's a very good point that Debbie makes, considering that greater than 20% of the land mass of this island is undeveloped. And I'm not talking about the parks either. I'm talking about lots meant for residential and commercial lease, grant, subdivision, etc., remain undeveloped and therefore unproductive. And there are a whole number of reasons why they should not remain undeveloped and unproductive in a sustainable way, I'm saying. Land remaining in the government's inventory, it's not a great thing, especially when greater than 20% of the land mass of an area is not reserved for parks and instead just unproductive because of the incompetence of the government. Let's see. We're going to go to the next bill. Hold on. There we go. Number 18 is also by the same set of senators, Sabina Perez, Telo Taidigui, Therese Trelahi, and Chris Barnett. Wait, I'm trying to fit this whole thing into the screen. Anyway, I don't know how to do that. Relative to the procedure for judicial review of decisions made by the public auditor in procurement appeals. It's interesting. This looks like procurement reform. When a party seeks judicial review of an OPA matter in a procurement appeal, OPA is named as a defendant in a civil action of the Superior Court. The judicial review process for such OPA decisions is treated like a regular civil action between parties suing for money damages, property rights, etc. This is different from the procedure followed for judicial review under blah, 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 blah. There is uncertainty as to the proper procedure for the judicial review of decisions by the public auditor in procurement appeals and related matters. It is therefore the legislature's intent to clarify that the proper procedure for such judicial review should be similar to that for judicial review of other administrative agency decisions under Guam law. So here's what the senators want to amend the law to say. Appeals and review of public auditor decisions. Any person receiving an adverse decision, the government or any autonomous agency or public corporation or both may appeal a decision, not from a decision, may appeal a decision by the public auditor to the Superior Court of Guam by filing a petition for judicial review. Oh, okay. That seems like common sense. Here is a bill by Sabina Perez and Chris Barnett. Relative to updating the Streetlight Fund and to authorize DPW to facilitate installation and replacement of streetlights and enhance safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists. Okay, This sounds like something that takes money, so let's see if there's a money aspect to this. There is currently a backlog of streetlight projects in need of installation, repair, and maintenance in different villages. DPW is in charge of this. The legislature finds that the historical use of the streetlight fund shows lapses of funds during the past 5 years. Lapsed funds could address gaps in installation and replacement of streetlights. Yeah, so here's one of those things where government finances takes a hit because of these traditions of the legislature. So, lapse funds are the bane of audits and the accounting of the government of Guam. Basically, sometimes the legislature funds things by saying, hey, you had this revenue level, let's say you had $10 million last year, and you only actually expended $8 million of what we authorized you to spend, which means you have $2 million in lapsed funds. And when the legislature allows those lapsed funds to roll into the following fiscal year and the fiscal year after that, there is an accumulation of revenue. And this is where things get tricky in government financing, because in government finances, this difference between revenue and cash, just because that agency has lapsed funds doesn't necessarily mean that the government of Guam's account has that much cash spared to cover those lapsed revenues. You understand? It's like, what happens if, because the governor also has transfer authority, and sometimes the governor uses that transfer authority to cover shortfalls in critical areas, for instance, GMH. And so when an agency, when on the books, you see that an agency has lapsed funds, you always have to check with the executive branch, with the Department of Administration, whether there is actually enough cash that is being stored away based on those lapses. Like they put it into some sort of trust, or they put it into some sort of savings account to generate interest payments, etc. So I don't know if this bill, if the authors of this bill took into consideration or asked the executive branch cash agency, which is the Department of Administration, whether this is backed up. But that would be a first problem in all of this. Okay, so this is the change. They want to make a change. They repeal and reenact a certain chapter or a certain section of a chapter in the Guam Code in Title 16. Repealing the part that says that about the establishment of the Streetlight Fund, which we maintain separate and apart from other funds. Money in the Streetlight Fund shall be used to pay for the installation and operation of public streetlights. All revenues deposited in the fund are reserved for use by the GPA for payment for operations and installation of public streetlights. So Sabina Perez and Chris Barnett get rid of that whole thing. Let me turn you back to the bill. Oh, I know what to do here. There we go. They get rid of that old section of the law and replace it with this. There is hereby created a non-lapsing revolving fund to be known. Oh, good. They take out the lapsing part. Well, that's a good thing. Known as the Streetlight Fund, which shall be maintained separate and apart from other funds and shall be kept in a separate bank account. Okay, good so far. Good job, Sabina Perez. Funds shall not be subject to any transfer authority. Good. And shall remain in such account until expended by DPW. DPW shall have programmatic oversight of said fund. All monies collected under this section shall be deposited in the fund and shall not be commingled with other funds. The DPW director shall submit quarterly collections and expenditures reports. Oh, this is good. This is about paying for the procurement, installation, operation, and maintenance of public streetlights. I like this bill. I don't see any downside to this bill whatsoever. All right, let's go to the next one. By Tello Taidagui and Sabina Perez. Relative. This is about repealing a public law from last year. Oh, this is about fireworks. Oh, that's going to be a good public hearing. Oh, my goodness. Telos Adigui and Sabina Perez want to get rid of the fireworks statute. Oh, that's going to be so controversial. You know, I just don't know. Is it a priority? Did the Republicans... Telos Adigui's a Republican. Granted, she's a maverick Republican. The Republicans did not campaign whatsoever on that being a priority, but we'll see. This one's by Tina Munya Barnes. She's almost the same thing as the... Oh, what happened? That page can't be found. Oh, gosh. I wonder if she had to withdraw this bill because Therese Terlahi introduced an almost identical bill. And according to the rules of the legislature, where it's first come, first serve, it's whoever introduced the bill first that gets the bill, that gets credit for the bill. And it looks like Therese Terlahi beat Tina Barnes to Tina Barnes' own bill when she introduced bill number 12 at 9:18 a.m. on January 13. Tina Munya Barnes introduced her bill the same day at 3:12 p.m. So what I think happened is they had to withdraw Tina Munya Barnes' bill because it was similar to Therese Terlahi's bill. But the funny thing is that is Tina Munya Barnes' bill. Like, she is the actual author of that. Bill number 22 by Tina Munya Barnes, relative to interfering with a judicial officer. I can't click on it, so I can't tell you what it says. I don't know what that's about. By Shelley Calvo, relative to establishing the Uniform Real Property Transfer on Death Act. Let's see what this is. Okay, here's definitions of beneficiary, joint, designated beneficiary, joint owner, person, property. I wonder if this will help with Guam's, all of Guam's probate problems. This chapter does not affect any method of transferring property otherwise permitted under the laws of Guam. A person may transfer property effective at the transferor's death to one or more beneficiaries by a transfer on death deed. What's a transfer on death deed? A transfer on death deed is revocable even if the deed or another instrument contains a contrary provision. A transfer on death deed is non-testamentary. This is all very smart stuff that I don't understand. We should probably interview Senator Calvo about this and try to understand more what this is about. Yeah, this is all very smart stuff. And I don't understand what any of it means. And let me write down that I need to, on part of my list, interview Senator Calvo about this. Bill number, what is this? 20? Is this bill 20? 23. Bill number 23. Calvo bill on land transfer. Maybe this will stop all of the fights that happen at the casket, at the funerals, over the disposition of land. It won't stop the fights that happen at the caskets, at the funerals, about who's going to take the Chinchuli box, but, I digress. By Will Parkinson, relative to emergency contraception for survivors of rape. You can't click on this, so I don't know what it says further. We'll get back to that. By Tina Munya Barnes, bill number 25. Relative to modernizing public hearing notice requirements by authorizing the posting of public notices in locally licensed electronic newspapers and websites. That she introduced that last year, and the Band of Merry Democrats prevented it from, and their two Republican, Telos Haidegui and Joanne Brown, prevented this from making it to the floor of the legislature. It's the modernization of public notices, and it's just the smart thing to do because the government of Guam is paying so much money right now on newspaper advertisements that are very expensive. And no offense to my brothers and sisters over at the Guam Daily Post, but this is a bill, this is legislation that can save the government of Guam a whole lot of money and also expand open government to the modern ways that people receive their communications. Here is a bill by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 members of the legislature, a veto-proof majority of the legislature, headed by Chris Duenas, the chairman on Ways and Means. This is his ADU bill. I can't click on it, so I can't show you what the details, but this is an incredibly critical affordable housing initiative, something that can truly help a lot of people who do not have the money to do certain things because of Guam's current land regulations. Essentially, you will be able to, without violating zoning requirements, build someone in your family, like a shack or like some kind of concrete structure adjacent to your home on your property, with its restroom and all of that stuff, without you breaking the bank. This was another piece of legislation that was stalled by the last legislature under the leadership of Sabina Perez and Therese Terlahi. Such a sad thing that these senators stopped this bill from becoming law. But thankfully, the Republicans are in charge now, and they've got this great bill there. Now, here is a bill by Will Parkinson. Again, it's one of those bills I can't click on, but this is relative to removing the restrictions on ownership of suppressors and silencers, to be known as the Hearing Protection Act of 2025. I don't know anything about guns. I don't know anything about gun safety. I'm generally, within reason, a Second Amendment supporter, but I also do believe in gun control. I don't know what this bill says, so I can't really comment on it. Those are your 27 introduced bills thus far in the 38th Guam legislature. What do you think of these bills? And so after this, I'll put this into a story on our website, and on a daily basis, you'll have this daily story on our website, which lists all of these bills and the links to all of them at guamlegislature.gov. And when the CNMI 24th legislature populates their website, it will go into the same daily story. We'll have this daily live feed or live stream so that we can discuss this together so tomorrow, if there is a bill number 28, we'll discuss bill number 28. If there's nothing, then we won't discuss anything. And we'll do this on a daily basis so that we are all informed about what our legislatures are up to. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. You all have a wonderful morning. I'll come back to a live stream later on today. In the meantime, I have a lot to do. God bless you, and I love you all.